about burnout, procrastination, and what we can do about it. So, I want to introduce you to StephanieJackman, who's going to talk to us about all of these things and let us know what we can do about it. Stephanie, you have the stage.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Thank you, Erica, for having me on your platform this morning. I am excited to be here. I want to thank all of you that took the time to join us this morning, and I hope you find the information that I'm going to provide for the masterclass informative. So first and foremost, we're just going to basically talk a little bit about procrastination and really kind of what that is. So, eye-opening moment for those of you all out there. We all have a tendency to procrastinate. It's pretty much inevitable. So it's not a big deal. You're not alone in that regard. And when I'm talking about procrastination for today's purposes, I'm really going to highlight that procrastination is really about chronically avoiding tasks or duties that we don't get enjoyment from, or that's really what procrastination is about. I'm going to say that again, just in case you all didn't catch it. Procrastination is about chronically avoiding tasks that we do not enjoy, and we deliberately find distractions to do as opposed to the said task. All right. Now let's talk a little bit briefly about burnout. So here's the myth about burnout. Most people think that burnout is about, I have so many tasks on my calendar that I just can't do them all. And as a result of me trying to do them all, I'm totally like spent. I can't do it anymore. That's one component of burnout, but really what burnout is about no longer receiving enjoyment or satisfaction or gratification around the tasks that you have on your list. That's what burnout is really about. So you can have as many tasks on your list as you want. And if you still gain fulfillment and gratification from them, you're not going to necessarily experience burnout. But if you are not experiencing gratification and enjoyment, that's then where burnout can kind of creep in. Okay. So when Erica and I spoke on Friday, February the 16th, I initially spoke about there being this degree of self-deception around procrastination. And Erica and I had talked a little bit about that. So I'm going to give you a little bit more around the self-deception with procrastination. Oftentimes, we will procrastinate because we're thinking that we can implement new habits and new strategies, and that will actually be easier than actually doing the task that we face and that we're attempting to avoid. And that's really not the case. It makes more sense for us to just go ahead and do the task that we are attempting to avoid. That's how our mind can really deceive us around procrastination. The other self-deception that we have around procrastination is thinking that this task is pretty complex, and so I don't want to do this task at this particular time. Let me look at doing this tomorrow. And the deception around the procrastination is that sometimes tomorrow never comes. And as a result of tomorrow never coming, we have to deal with the consequences of not addressing the task initially. Okay. So for now, I'm going to talk briefly a little bit about four different areas, and then I want to give you the motivational strategies. So briefly, we're going to talk about why we procrastinate. We will then talk about what are the drivers to procrastination. We will talk about what purpose procrastination serves. And then lastly, we'll talk about the consequences of procrastination. All right, so let's look at that. Why do we procrastinate? So I'm going to give you three main reasons of why we procrastinate as individuals. And again, like I said, we all procrastinate. In my research, about 20% of individuals would label themselves or categorize themselves as procrastinators. So the first reason why we procrastinate is we do not believe that we will enjoy the task at hand. We don't believe that we will enjoy it. Okay. The second reason we procrastinate is because we're looking to avoid making ourselves unhappy. All right. Anytime we have a task that we don't want to do, we're going to avoid that because we don't want to experience displeasure. We don't want to experience discomfort. I'm going to tell you two things about human behavior. Human behavior is such as this. Human behavior is either one, we are looking to gain pleasure in what we do, or two, we are looking to avoid pain. And those are two reasons why we really can also move into procrastination. Okay. The third reason why we procrastinate is we fear, and I spoke about this just a minute ago, we fear that we're not able to do the task well, whatever that task is. And we think that it's more complicated than perhaps what it actually is. So for example, individuals that may be able to do their taxes, and they're one individual person. They don't have any write-offs. In their mind, they may think, oh my goodness, this is so complex. I'm not going to be able to do my form to be able to do my taxes. But in actuality, you're one single person, you don't have any write-offs. It's probably pretty simple as opposed to a family of two who's married with 3 kids. That may be a little, and own a home. That may be a little bit more complex and complicated than a single person with no write-offs, live in an apartment, makes under, $52,000 a year. Perhaps that may be a little bit more simple. Okay. So those are some of the reasons why we procrastinate. Next, let's talk about the drivers, right? The drivers of procrastination. We have a lack of self-confidence, and we've all been there. We've all been there in terms of that lack of self-confidence, meaning, can I really do this? Can I really start this business? We're now at March 1st. Can I really start the business that I had wrote down on paper that on December 31st that I wanted to start by January the 15th? Okay, so can I really do this? And will I be good at it? That's the other thing. Will I be good at it? So a lack of self-confidence is a driver behind why we kind of pause and procrastinate. The second reason for a second driver around procrastination is anxiety. Now here is something. Oftentimes we'll talk about the fear of failure, but how many of us as business owners can really be honest with ourselves and those around us and talk about fear of success? Because that is often a thing as well. It's no longer just fear of failure, it's also fear of success. So if I have the fear of success, then that means that I won't necessarily do the things, do the tasks, file the PLLC, create a team and get a team, right? To be able to move out into the goal of starting that business or applying for that job. Okay, so we'll procrastinate in that regard, not just for the fear of failure, but also the fear of success. Success requires a lot of discipline. Okay, and one of our greatest disciplines is patience. Okay, that's one of the greatest disciplines that we can have as human beings. I don't care what sector you're in. I don't care if you're a supervisor, a manager, a leader, a business owner, whatever sector you're in. One of our greatest disciplines is patience. And oftentimes we will procrastinate because we don't want to go through the growing pains of learning the process that will work best for us. Okay. Lastly, drivers around procrastination is our inability to be able to motivate ourselves. And how do we motivate ourselves? Oftentimes we can't motivate ourselves, or we struggle to motivate ourselves because that inner critic that kind of sits on our shoulders and whispers negative self-talk to us will say, you're not able to do this. You're not good at that. Are you sure this is where you're supposed to be? Is this really your purpose or your calling? So our inability to be able to motivate ourselves is also a driver. And we will talk a little bit when we're talking about the motivational strategies. I will speak more about how do we get that motivation? Where do we pull that from? Okay, next. We're going to discuss, does procrastination serve a purpose? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. It serves a purpose for all of us, even though, as I stated earlier, that it is a self-defeating behavior, it still serves a purpose for us. And what I mean by that, for those of us that are procrastinators, and I'm going to say us, because again, in some aspect, we all procrastinate. I'm not an exemption to that. I have not mastered not procrastinating, so I will say us. It serves a purpose for us because it's a protective factor at times. And it's a protective factor around our own self-judgment of blame, and a protective factor for other people to judge us. Meaning, like, if we have perfectionist tendencies, meaning everything has to be perfect. If it's not going to be perfect, I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm not willing to do it. I'm not going to embark in even taking that leap to jump into the task. Those are perfectionist tendencies. So as opposed to disappointing ourselves, disappointing others, because we feel like it's not going to be perfect, we will then move to other distractions that we're good in, so that we can feel good about ourselves and we can feel like we've had a sense of productivity and accomplishment. So what do I mean? That means things that we have on our list for productivity around our business tasks, or if we're leaders and we have to do tasks for our desired outcomes, let's say, we will avoid those tasks and we'll do things that we're good at. For example, again, on February 16th, when Erica and I initially talked, we both talked about laundry. Neither one of us really want to do the whole laundry thing, but we'll do it. My thing is, I don't mind doing the laundry. It's the folding part that I really don't like, right? And so as opposed to taking the time to fold the laundry, what I would do instead is I'm going to then focus to doing more on business work, things that I like to do. So I'm going to do some organization. I'm going to do some organizing around the house. I might even wash the floor or clean the kitchen or something like that. Those are tasks that I don't mind. So as opposed to having to fold the laundry and the laundry stays in the dryer for perhaps a week or so, and I'm going downstairs in the basement to get things that I need, my husband's going downstairs in the basement to get things that he needs, I'll just totally avoid the folding part, right? So when we feel like it's a task that we don't get enjoyment out of, when we feel like we're not good in, we're going to then shift to those tasks that we feel we're great in and we're shining stars. All right. So that's the purpose of procrastination, because it allows us to feel a sense of accomplishment and a sense of purpose. Oftentimes in my private practice, I will ask new clients, Tell me the last time when you experienced success. What's the last thing that you did that you can say you experienced success or you had a sense of accomplishment? And oftentimes there's 2 or 3 minutes of dead silence. Why? Because if we do not feel as though we have mastered a thing, we will avoid it at all cost. So procrastination serves a purpose for us in that regard. All right. We will often talk about, I'll do that later. And again, later never comes. Okay. Lastly, let's talk about the consequences of procrastination. Again, Erica and I spoke on February 16th, and she talked about, Stephanie, are there consequences? Like, can it be, depression, or can it create some type of mental health distress? And to answer your question, Erica, I told you I wouldn't answer it on the 16th, but I would certainly answer it on the 1st. When we had your masterclass, is absolutely. There are certainly consequences to procrastination, and oftentimes those consequences can be related to mental health, right? And to just mental, emotional, and perhaps even physical distress. So, for example, when we're putting things off that really need to be done. So if our supervisor or our manager or director is looking for us to produce a thing and we continue to put that thing off, that can cause distress for us because we're not coming to a place of being able to meet those expected deliverables. Okay. So perhaps we are experiencing some anxiety around that. Perhaps we're having insomnia because we can't sleep, because we're anticipating our manager, our director, is going to ask us, hey, do you have such and such and such? Okay. So there are distressful consequences to that. Often also, we will procrastinate because negative self-talk comes into play. And so as a result of that, the more we hear those negative voices and that inner negative critic, it can then create a level of depression for us. So as a result of that, we will just avoid the task altogether. We'll say, you know what? I don't really need to do this in order to be able to do that. And perhaps in some instances that may be true, but then perhaps in other instances that may not be the case. And then you're going to have to revisit it all over again, or again, perhaps deal with the consequences of that in terms of your leader wanting to know, well, hey, why didn't you get this done? Or I thought you told me that you would have that on my desk or in my email on Monday, and today is Friday. Right? So there are consequences around that. We'll typically attempt to avoid the responsibilities and the task altogether, thinking that, again, we'll be able to get to it later. And that, again, is not necessarily the case. So I really wanted to highlight those particular areas because now I definitely want us to spend some time around the motivational strategies. And I talk about them being motivational strategies because in order to be able to shift from a mindset of procrastination and avoidance, we have to then be motivated to look at, if I implement some of these strategies in my personal and professional life, this then will motivate me to be able to feel a sense of accomplishment and success. All right. So we now are going to move into some of the motivational strategies that I have for you. And I want to say maybe 8 or 9 that we're going to highlight over the next 20 or 25 minutes or so. Okay. And these motivational strategies, how I have laid them out for you, is that they actually build off of each other. So they're scaffold off of each other. So if you do the first one, then we can then move into the next one and then move into the next one, so on and so forth. Okay. So now Erica is going to bring up those slides, and the first one is going to be the motivational strategy of finish your day before it starts. Now, some of you may be saying, Stephanie, what does that mean? Well, what that means is let's plan our day in advance. Let's not wait until this morning. If we're on the clock and our day starts at 8 a.m., let's not begin to plan our day at 7:30. Let's look at planning our day the night before. So today is Friday. Let's look at planning Friday's tasks on Thursday, right? Because then that's going to be able to help us look at what are the things that we need to do. Now, here's something that I want you to think about when we're talking about finishing your day before it starts. It's important that we look at two things. What is the big thing that I need to accomplish today? And then what's the thing that I want to accomplish today? Those can be two totally different things. And oftentimes they are, because in most instances, the big thing that we have to accomplish is a have to. The want to is not necessarily a must for productivity. All right. So it's important, one, when we're talking about finishing your day before it starts, one, we need to identify the tasks that we have to do on today. Second, we need to identify the desired outcome of the day. That's why it's so important for us to plan Friday on Thursday. This is something that I do on a regular basis, and I've found it to be very helpful on a professional level, but also on a personal note. So on a personal note, before I end my day or before my husband ends his day, we're asking each other, what's on your agenda tomorrow? What do you have to do tomorrow? Okay, because then that lets us know where our spouse is going to be, where our significant other is going to be. It also lets me know, hey, do I need to cook dinner tomorrow, or is he going to have a dinner meeting? Is he going to be out of the house? All of those types of things. So it's really about preparation. Okay. So that's motivational strategy number one. Again, planning. Plan your day before it starts. Next. All right, we're implementing boundaries. Let's talk about implementing boundaries. Now, oftentimes when we hear boundaries, a lot of people are like, boundaries? I don't like boundaries. They're restrictive. Then other people are like, oh, boundaries. Yes, absolutely. I am a stickler for boundaries. I'm a stickler. I've been taught professionally from undergrad to grad school about boundaries, particularly as a therapist, boundaries in terms of your time, boundaries in terms of self-disclosure. So I'm a stickler about time being a boundary, and our time is a boundary. Okay, so let's look at implementation of boundaries. Boundaries are limits or lines that we draw. Okay, and they're these invisible lines that we draw in terms of being able to know where something starts and where something ends. And they don't have to be a bad thing. Actually, boundaries are good, particularly in relationships, because it helps the relationship establish expectations, as well as boundaries allow for us to have realistic expectations, as well as drawing that line in terms of where one starts and where one can end. So that's the same with implementing time as a boundary. So what do I mean by that in terms of our time? in this area around implementing boundaries, it's important that we limit distractions. So in order to be able to be productive, let's limit distractions. What do I mean by distractions? Anything that is keeping us from focusing on the task at hand. So that could be individuals, that could be the television, that could be music, that could be emails at the time, that could be our phones. Any of those things can be viewed as distractions. So it's important that we limit distractions. So that may mean that we might need to change some things. We may need to change where we work. It may mean we need to change how we work so that we can then focus on that task. Also, a boundary is your workspace. A door is a boundary because when a door is closed, that lets people on the other side of the door know, hey, I'm busy here. I'm working here. When the door is open, when the door is cracked, then we can have movement in and out. And that's something, again, with both my husband and I working from home often, we have that door and we can understand, okay, she's working, he's working. Even when we're on calls, we can hear each other perhaps through the door. So then that means that's a boundary, okay? So create boundaries for yourself so that you can focus on the task at hand. Again, boundaries don't have to be a bad thing. Another implementation of boundaries is alluding back to what I talked about when on strategy number 1. Finish your day before it starts is key and critical for us to create a list. 2 lists I'm going to encourage us to have. The first list is the have to do list. I have to do these things today. The second one, the second list is the list of I want to do these things. What's my want to do list? Because again, the priority is going to be the have to do list, and then we can get to the want to do list. Oftentimes our want to do list is the fun things, okay? Again, the deception with procrastination is that if I don't get to it now, I'll get to it later. And again, oftentimes later doesn't come, okay? All right, next slide, Erica. Time management versus task management. So, what do I mean when I say time management? Let's be realistic about how long a task will take us. Because in that regard, we're setting ourselves up for success. So if it takes you on an average 20 minutes every morning to go through your emails that you've gotten the night before, don't just set aside 5 and then think you're going to be able to move into the next part of your morning. If you get 25, 35, 40 emails overnight, make sure you set enough time aside for you to be able to go through those and filter those, because that's helping setting you up for success. The other thing is that is key and critical to remember, we only get 24 hours in a day. That's it. 24 hours in a day. And for some of us, that may be a lot of time. And for others of us, because we're often working behind the 8 ball, if you will, is not enough time. But we only get 24. We can't adjust that one way or another, okay? So around your task management, there may be some things that you may have to do yourself personally. There may be some things that you have to delegate, right? There may be some things that you have to defer or delete. And then there may be some things that you have to decline. So for me, this one is very timely because my husband and I were talking, and he talked about, your days are really extended. This was maybe 8, 9 months ago. Your days are really long and really extended because you're spending a lot of time on what looks like paperwork and administrative duties, right? And those are things that I really don't like. And he often talked about, I think it's time for you to scale your business, scale your business. And I'm like, scale my business? What does he mean, scale my business? And so when we're talking about, scaling your business, for me, it was basically getting that support. As the business grew, I needed the additional support. And one hand that I really, really needed was administrative support, right? I needed that administrative support because I was spending a lot of time after seeing patients and addressing clients and that type of thing, spending a lot of time in paperwork, and I don't like doing paperwork. Okay. So in scaling our businesses, for those of you that are small business owners and entrepreneurs, scaling our businesses is a great investment. And many of you may be saying, oh, I don't have the money to do that. Okay. But the time that I was spending in terms of doing administrative tasks and paperwork and things of that nature, I could have actually been seeing more patients. I could have been actually doing more consulting, which would have then been generating more finances to then be able to help pay the administrative support person. So it's really key and critical to understand in terms of time management. We only have 24 hours in a day versus the task management piece around, am I doing it? Am I delegating it? Am I perhaps deleting it, or am I declining it? All right. So that's really, really key. Next slide. All right. Next motivational strategy. Let's identify our peak productivity time. Now, what is that? That's our high performance time. That's what that is, our high performance time, meaning what block of time are we most productive? Now, research shows that our high productivity time for the average human is really late morning, right before lunchtime. But for many of us, it is early morning. So for me, I would say it's early morning. Now, it hasn't always been like that, but now I've shifted some things. Again, as the business has shifted, I've had to shift. So anyone that really knows me on a personal level would tell you that I like my sleep. Okay. Erica says it's 10 a.m. for her. I like my sleep, right? But if I wanted my business to grow, I was going to have to give up some of that sleep. So typically I would wake up when the business was growing, I would wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning to be able to start my day and start seeing clients and doing consulting about 9. And I would be up at 8 and I would hear my husband shuffling around at like 6:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, wow, what is he doing up so early? This man never sleeps. I went to bed at 11. He was still up. And now it's 6 o'clock, 5:45, and I hear him rustling around in his office. And I'm like, okay. So again, I'm wanting my business to grow. And I'm saying, he might be on to something here, right? So I had to give up some of that sleep in order for me to then use that time to be able to say, are there other things that I can do and make this a productive time? So now, as the business has grown, I am now up at 5:15 in the morning, and I am out of the house when I'm not working from home. I am out of the house at 6:15. Okay. Because again, we have to move and identify what our peak productivity time is. So by the time I hit the office at 7 o'clock, I'm ready, I'm moving, and I'm ready to go. Okay. So it's important, again, that we're looking at, when do I best shine? When am I the sharpest? All right. When am I able to use this time to be able to deliver and focus on the deliverables. DK says peak time for her is 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. And I can certainly agree with that. DK, mine is about 7, once I hit the office, 7 until about 11:30, 12. And then I'm, eating that light lunch, if you will, and then I can hit some strides a little bit more. So it's important that you know that. Toya says her as well, that 5 to 9 a.m. time. So it's key and critical that we know that peak productivity time. Set an alarm for yourself if you need that time, okay? While others are sleeping, we're grinding. Sacrifice short term so that we can play long term. That's my husband. That's our motto in the house. It took me a little longer to get on board, right? But now that I'm on board, I'm grinding early in the morning, all right? So that's really, really key. So again, if you need to set an alarm for yourself, take a break. If you're working from home, set an alarm, set your cell phone, the microwave timer, whatever it is that's going to work for you so that you can identify that peak productivity time. This is the design time so that you can add value to your bottom line. That's the key around the productivity time, okay? All right, next, motivational strategy moving forward. All right, let's break the big task into smaller tasks. This one is really, really key for those of us that may procrastinate. All right, really, really key. Erica says, I'm out of the bed at 5, but I don't like it. Erica, I agree. I'm up and out of the bed at 5:15. I don't like it. But again, sacrifice short term for the long-term benefit. Okay? Sacrifice short term for that long-term benefit. You won't go wrong. All right. So breaking the big tasks into smaller tasks. Now, here's something that I need us all to remember. This is key. This is really key. Big Dog says my prime time is when the wife is asleep. Very good. Very good. Because you can focus in that time period, right? Remember, I talked about minimizing any type of distractions and not saying your wife is a distraction, but certainly minimizing that. Okay. So that when she wakes up, then you can have some time to spend with her. You all can have some time together, and then you can go back and hit the grind. Okay. So breaking those big tasks into smaller tasks. This is so important. Okay. If we do not attempt the smallest component of a task, then we ensure our failure. We ensure it because we haven't done anything. Okay. And if we typically procrastinate to avoid a degree of failure, if we just don't do the smallest thing towards accomplishing the bigger goal, we're ensuring failure. But if we move towards doing a small thing towards the larger task, guess what? We're moving and risking the possibility of success. Now, that's very powerful. Okay, so we have to put our hat in the ring in order to be able to risk the possibility of success. We don't know if we're able to do a thing if we don't attempt to try it. All right, so that piece is really key. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, again, we talked about the consequences of procrastination. Really, procrastination is really rooted in anxiety. And I spoke about that before, the fear of success and the fear of failure. So what we really have to do is, in breaking up the big tasks into smaller tasks, what we really need to look at is chunking the task into smaller, doable items. So we're taking big pieces and chunking them into smaller, doable items. All right. So if we don't attempt to start a thing or to embark on a thing, we're guaranteeing failure. But if we take it from a big task to a smaller task, believe it or not, we are actually moving into success. Okay. All right, next. Our next slide. Now, here's something that I want you to think about. And we talked about this before. Having an accountability partner, right? So talking about the complexities of a task. We oftentimes will procrastinate because we don't know if we're good at a thing, or we don't know if what we're looking to do, we've identified it as being more complex than what it actually is. But we don't know that perhaps because we haven't embarked on it. So who is or who can we identify as our accountability partner? Is it a business partner? Is it an executive coach? Is it our supervisor? Is it our manager? Who is it that we will identify as our accountability partner? In other words, who's the person that we're willing to be most vulnerable with to be able to say, this is an area and this is a task in which I struggle in and I need help. I need help. I need assistance. I need guidance. I don't know how to do this. All right. So with an accountability partner, there's a degree of a willingness to be vulnerable. Okay. No one has ever experienced success on an island on their own. So again, if you do not have an accountability partner, I'm going to certainly encourage you to reach out for one. If it's a mentor, if it's an executive coach, if it's your manager, your supervisor, all right, whoever that is, that's going to be the person that you're willing to be most vulnerable with, and the one that's going to be willing to help you build new healthy habits so that you can accomplish the thing in which you're looking to avoid. All right, next. Our next slide. All right, we have 3 more. All right, this one will be the one that, let's see. That one should be build in, I can't see the words. Build in, build in incentives. Thank you. We're building in incentives. Now, this is the one where I'll be honest with you, this one is my favorite motivational strategy. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I like to check things off my to-do list, off my have-to-do list. And I like to give myself and identify incentives for myself so that it drives me and motivates me to do the thing that I have to do first, and then be able to move towards what's the reward. This one I love, okay? This is my favorite. So I'm going to give you an example. I had some tasks that I needed to do last week in terms of preparation for this presentation, as well as preparation for future presentations. And I also, again, I had some things to do around the house. So I used that time, and my husband was out of the house. I used that time to be able to first do the things that I needed to do in the house so that he wasn't in my way and I wasn't in his way and making noise and all that other stuff. When he came home, I was done with the things for the house. But when he also came home and he saw that some things that I had ordered had been delivered. So they were on the steps, and he was like, "Oh my goodness, your packages came." And I was like, "Yep, my packages came." He was like, "Come on, let's open them. I want to see them." I was like, "Nope. I have some things that I need to do on my list of my have to do list before I open those packages." Okay. So that was my incentive. I did the housework that I needed to do while he was out of the house. So he wasn't in my way. I wasn't distracting him. I wasn't in his way. I wasn't making noise. The delivery man set the things on the porch. I got them out. I was looking at them. I was like, oh, yay, my things are here. But I didn't open them until I got the things done on my have to do list. Okay. And it took me like 3 or 4 hours to get those things done. And I'm sitting there and I'm walking by my packages. I'm like, nope, don't open them until I get all the things that I needed to do in terms of preparing for this presentation and even a presentation that I have next week that I had to do. Once I got all that done, then guess what? I got my scissors and I was cutting the boxes and ripping them open because that was the incentive for me. All right. So make sure that you look at what are identifiable incentives for you. What do you want to do? Okay. What do you want in terms of what are you looking at? All right. What's the goal? I oftentimes will hear colleagues say, when I secure this contract, then I'm going to get myself this. I'm going to invest in this for myself. I'm going to get this tech tool for myself, or I'm going to get myself a new whatever it is. Okay. So build in incentives, create an incentive list for yourself in terms of what drives you and motivates you. And then once you accomplish those goals, you can then partake in those incentives. All right. So build in incentives on a daily basis for yourself to help motivate you to get a task done. That can be something like going to get coffee with a friend, taking a coffee break, getting a snack in between one phone call to the next, whatever the incentive is for you. Okay. Build in those incentives. All right. Next. All right, this one here. This one is be kind to yourself, even when you're procrastinating. Okay, even none of us have mastered this thing. So be kind to yourself. What do I mean by that? Extend yourself some grace. Because remember, I started this presentation by saying we all procrastinate. None of us are exempt, right? Some of us have some tasks that we could be doing right now, but we're like, nope. I'm going to be focused specifically on this masterclass. All right. That's not a bad thing. Where you can defeat procrastination is once our time together is over, then do that task and embark and engage on that task that you really don't want to do. All right. Be kind to yourself. Show yourself some empathy and some compassion. Punishing ourselves because we've procrastinated never works. All right. So put it back on your list tomorrow if you didn't get to it today, and then put it on that must do list, have to do list, as opposed to the want to do list. That's right, Erica. Focus on the masterclass right now. And then when we're all done and our time is over, then you go back to the task, because hopefully you will have learned some new motivational strategies to be able to address the task that you have been looking to avoid. All right. So focus on our time together during this masterclass. I hope you're documenting the motivational strategies. And then after we're done together, implement 1 or 2 of them. Okay. Lastly, our last motivational strategy. Let's make this thing fun. How do you make it fun? Yep, I've procrastinated. Yep, I'm chronically procrastinating or avoiding something. How do you make it fun? Again, having your have to do list and your want to do list. Embark on the have to do task first, even if it's just one. You don't have to do them all, but even just one. And then how do you make it fun? Can you do the tasks to music? Can you do the task standing up? Can you do the task in collaboration with your accountability partner? Okay. Can you do the task over coffee or over your favorite snack? For myself, and Erica knows this, that favorite snack might be me doing it over pizza. Okay. Right? So whatever it is, can you do it and make it fun for yourself? Can you change the location in which you choose to do the task? All right. Again, minimizing the distractions. And what productivity tools are you using? Perhaps you may need to invest in new productivity tools. So, what's the organizer that you're using? What's the laptop that you're using? Okay. Is your phone compatible for what you're looking to do? Again, do you need administrative assistance supports? All right. So that piece is really key. Attempt to make it fun at any cost. And again, if you don't get the tasks on your have to do list done on today, there's always tomorrow. Now, lastly, before I wrap up, I just want to say this. From a longevity standpoint, if you're continuing to really struggle with procrastination, right, it could be something else that's going on with you. Okay. So, in that regard, perhaps maybe you want to connect with your primary care physician. Maybe you want to see a therapist because you may be dealing with some inattentiveness in terms of poor focus and poor concentration. You might be struggling with ADD, attention deficit disorder, or ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, right? Or you may be struggling with anxiety. All of those areas in terms of ADD, ADHD, anxiety, some of the symptoms around that are poor focus, poor concentration, inability to stay on a task for any time. So I would encourage you that if you're continuing to struggle and it's really impacting your productivity personally, professionally, I would encourage you then to seek out some professional support. But at the end of the day, it's key and critical to know that we have motivational strategies to be able to utilize to help minimize our procrastination, to decrease procrastination and increase productivity. So I want to thank you all for your time and attention today. And I want to thank Erica Bates, the queen of virtual summit strategies and the queen of automation, for allowing me the opportunity to be on her platform today. Thank you all so much. Oh, you're on mute.
Yep. I want to say thank you, Stephanie, for all the nice things and for being our speaker today. I really appreciate that. I've learned some things today, some new things today. So, is there anything that you want us to do or anything you want us to know before we cut off the live stream?
Sure. Again, I would just want to thank you for the opportunity. Thank you all for participating. And I just want to say, if you are not aware, I would like to invite all of you to join and subscribe to my new YouTube page. And I am hosting a show, a live broadcast, and that is entitled Your Best Unleashed. And that is a show that just is designed to help provide a message of hope for everyone, to be able to give you practical skills and strategies, just like I did today, to be able to help you be your best self mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So if you are not familiar, I'm going to ask if Erica is willing to put my YouTube page up there, and I'm going to encourage you to subscribe to my page and hit the notification button, as well as share it with your community.
Yep, there it is, StephanieJackman. So if you guys want to hang out and meet people like Stephanie Jackson, who's brilliant, by the way, you want to hang out with more people like her, you need to join the Virtual Summiteers, because right now we're about to cut off the live. So